What's going on, everybody? My name is Terminus, and today we mourn the loss of an amazing series. This series has brought us through thick and But anyway, today we're gonna react to the last episode of 𝐸𝐴𝐿 no Frieren for now. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be back. I'm sure there's gonna be more interesting stuff happening, and I do know one thing for sure, and that is that this is not the end of the Frieren content on this channel. There might not be much, but there's 1 or 2 videos coming, I do think. I have planned to do a resume of the series, kind of talk about this and that, right? It might take some time. We might take some like couple of weeks or a month pause and have something, then have something come out on Frieren. I still wanted to do that opinion piece. I had it planned in January, then exams got in the way, then other stuff got in the way, right? I wanted to catch up to the series and finish it in fashion relatively timely after it actually happened, and it does look like this is actually going to be the case. This Friday, episode 28 came out, and now we're here less than a week later for you now. Once it's public, probably a little bit more than a week later. But relatively timely for everybody to still catch it and see that it's happening, and that the reaction series is coming to an end here. Whenever season 2 is gonna come, I'm ready. I'm ready, willing and able to get myself into it again head first. And yeah, maybe I'm gonna start a little bit later after the first couple of episodes are coming along, because I do like that flexibility of having not 1 but maybe 2 or 3 episodes that I could immediately watch whenever I do actually have the time, and then bring them out when they're appropriate and whatever. I do also like to be up to speed with the series in general, so because I do like watching reactions on my own, and I do like watching reviews and actually seeing what other people think about the series, so that's a cool thing too. But we're gonna bring this here series, this first season that had 28 fucking episodes, to a close in fashion. Probably with more of a calm episodes, more of a resume episode. Last episode at the end we had that preview and all we heard are like celebration noises, so we probably put a resume on it, maybe tease 1 or 2 things that are gonna happen in season 2, put a bow on some of the things we don't know yet. For example, we don't know who else aside from Fan actually passed the exam, if any of them. Frieren didn't, because fuck you, Frieren, right? But that was to be expected, with 𝐸𝐴𝐿 being the one who proctored it. Frieren doesn't care about it either, right? It doesn't matter to her. She's got an entirely different set of values, set of priorities than 𝐸𝐴𝐿 and all the other mages that we've seen in the series. She just went through because she wanted to go north, and now we can do it anyway. It's very interesting because this is the first time actually Frieren has to rely on somebody else to get what she wants. I mean, it's not a big deal because they're traveling together anyway, and Fan's current goal in life is to actually travel with Frieren and make more experiences with her and just have a fun time with her and be happy with her. And I think that's beautiful, but at the same time, obviously down the line she might develop feelings and interests on her own, right? Goals of her own that she wants to achieve again. would be great to see that develop, right? Being in the kind of insecure stages, right? Getting your interest piqued and then being intrigued and then going deeper into it, having these moments of hesitation and maybe ringing with yourself and being like, is this really what I want? And then going for it, right? Deciding, gathering the resolve to actually do it. Probably gonna come up at some point. But for now, let's go into last episode and see what we actually did, because this is how we do things. Before we go in, I know a couple of you are not or watching these pre-discussions, which is perfectly fine. If you are interested in my videos, if you do enjoy them, leave them a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to not miss any more of my other content as well. Check out my Patreon. There's something new on there probably at this point, and at this point you're probably gonna see it, see what it is, because last week I actually had it kind of mysterious, not really mysterious. People could probably tell almost immediately what kind of series it is. We have Pulse going on, right? We have other stuff going on. We do have Made in Abyss still going on, even though it's not for long anymore. We do have 𝐏𝐢𝐏𝐬 𝐿 going on in regular intervals. But yeah, check out the Patreon, check out the Discord, all of that nice stuff, and let's get into it. Do love the focus, right? We do have the depth of field going on, 2 layers: the layer of the lake with the city, and the layer of the immediate cliff where Stark is very much in meditation with our old boy here, thinking himself Master Yoda. But you know, as I said a couple of times, for all we know, he might be some weird fucking sensei, or he's a loony. Well, but you know, both of them exist. Fan being peeved again, we had that last episode. I guess we can take a last resume of this intro. I did really love the sunny vibes of this intro, like the optimistic view. Love the butterfly motive, right? You can interpret a lot into that. First being like Fan being connected to the butterfly because of a butterfly spell that we've seen very, very early, probably one of the first spells she ever learned from 𝐸𝐬𝐿. And that butterfly sitting, or these butterflies sitting very close to Frieren, in a way, metaphorically, Fan influencing Frieren, and Fan being around Frieren. Also butterfly in the sense of butterfly effect, right? Tiny changes in your life, be that by other people or changes you make that have an effect on other people. Affecting, right? Having an effect. That's what I mean. Like the little things you do having an effect, and the little things that are done to you or for you having an effect. With Frieren very much optimistically going into into a new direction. We have Sign, interestingly enough, still in the intro, although he parted ways with us. Very cool, very interesting. I do hope we see him in season 2. The cool little mage arc exam kind of deal going on. A lot of people were like not the most excited about it because it's put us in one place for a rather long time, right? For a bunch of episodes where we spend a lot of on-screen time, but also in universe not a lot of time, just a couple of days, focusing on a vast array of characters from 𝐸𝐿 and Lawine that we've met in passing, right? And we do have that little basket, which we now saw, right, was the basket that they gave Frieren in thanks for the first exam and all of that. Himmel and the symbol of peace, right? The hero who brought about peace, and his statue. Interestingly enough, the back towards us, right? He's already passed on. The ancient times, right? We do have like a mirror image kind of deal of the Continental Magic Association and Sirius. Not so, a little bit condescending face inside of that. We do have these two, which I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to think about that, right? But it's probably 𝐸𝐴 and Frieren looking out the cliff talking about humanity's age coming. Very much I did like that light shadow motive that we talked about. Flam's childhood, right? All the first class mages, the flowers with the flower spell, now we know what it means. Still not sure on this dude here. We haven't seen him yet. So, I mean, it might be, yeah, he kind of low-key looks like Lennon, so. Do wonder if we're gonna see more about Lennon this episode, right? To get some kind of tease. We do have, I need to be careful, by the way, with this, because this is the opening. They're very good with their content ID on that. Richter and 𝐸𝐴 and 𝐕rbel and all the amazing characters. 𝐸𝐴, Himmel in a Field of Flowers together with 𝐈𝐦𝐩 and 𝐈𝐦𝐩, of course. Fan looking back to Frieren. We'll talk about, again, a couple of things that I've been talking about on episode 26, because there have been comments coming in, and obviously I kind of react to the comments and I kind of try to gauge what's happening there. There's a couple of people, Airwave and Vincent mostly. One of the points I talked about was that, in a way, I do respect 𝐸𝐴 for what she's doing. What I meant was, I do respect that she's actually giving people an out. I didn't mean like I respect that she is putting people into impossible odds. And we talked about this, I think, last episode, and even in the episodes before that a little bit. We talked about the fact that, yes, I do think this part is kind of low-key unfair, because she's putting in this element that, now, imagine Frieren is not here, right? But even with Frieren here, we do have this element of this very, very powerful first-class mage who has been first-class mage for quite some time, and their mirror image actually being produced in there. And 𝐸𝐴 knew why this dungeon, or at least had an inkling, because we know that 𝐏𝐢𝐏 is talking to Falsch about it, to give us as the audience exposition. So we do know that they, like the first-class mages, know about this. At least should know about this, that there is the Spiegel down there and what its capabilities are, and as such she should actually know that this is a very unfair test. But we do have this element of, yes, first class mages are supposed to do the impossible. Now, it's very vague to define doing the impossible as a job, in my opinion. Because if you think about it, right, there's a lot of vagueness in that. How do you define the borders of doing the impossible? And if you don't, then is there even a rational measurement of where, like, of what level you want people to be at? Or will it be up to the discretion of any first class mage who is proctoring a test to be like, all right, I feel like this is what I want from people, and they can think of anything, and as long as it is possible to create it as a test, it can be done, and it will be done. And if everybody fails, everybody fails. That's kind of not the point, in my opinion. And in that sense, 𝐸𝐴 might be more respectable in the way that she doesn't want to waste the talents of mages, right? She doesn't want them to die. Which I highlighted to say, like, in this sense, I do actually respect and like 𝐸𝐴 more than I do 𝐏𝐢𝐏, because in 𝐏𝐢𝐏's case, he was like, well, if they die, they die, right? They wouldn't have been worth first class anyway, without questioning if that might have been the case later on, or if it might have at least been cool to have people who know their capabilities but also their limits, who are second class or third class mages, right? Because we need those too. So, yeah. I don't know. There's generally a lot going on that we don't know about, really, that in my opinion could have been clearer defined, and seems very much like you are asking the impossible from people, and you are pretty much putting it oftentimes in the hands of chance, right? And in the hands of RNG, if people actually pass a test. Right? Whose clone are you gonna come up against? What traps are you gonna come up against? Obviously, you want people to be at a certain level where they are ready and adaptable to anything. But I think that nobody is absolutely infallible. And if you look at Denken, no, not Denken, if you look at Genau, if you look at Sense, if you look at Falsch, and if you look at Lernen, or even Serie, none of these, some of them might not even have attempted it, to be fair, but none of these actually conquered this dungeon. So being like, okay, you need to do this to pass the test, it's like a professor asking the student who is doing their thesis to actually write a better thesis than any of the articles you've written, right? I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you're setting the standard where you're like, okay, you're the student, you need to pass to actually get your whatever master's degree, whatever, right? Then, or your doctorate, right? I want your research for your doctorate to be better than what I've achieved in my 20, 30, whatever years of being a doctor. Which, cool that you want people to strive higher and become better, but maybe apply the standard where you're like, I want you to be as good as I am in general, right? I want your thesis to be as good as most of my papers, right? That's a standard that you've already met, where you can actually clearly define the line and be like, this is where the line is, and if you are above it, that's great, right? If you're below it, I don't want you, that's fair, right? But yeah, very unfair in my opinion, obviously, very unfair. Doing the impossible. In today's age, at the very least, from my point of view as somebody who has been involved in the academic world, but also in like normal workplace world, this is not something you should be demanding of somebody just for being granted the honor of doing a job. And yeah, maybe it might not be an honorary title, and yes, maybe you might require the people who are first class mages to actually, by order of Serie or whatever, or the kingdom, go into new situations that they don't know much about, that they might be in over their heads on, that face opponents that are more powerful than them. Facing them and overcoming them are two different things. And just because you're overcoming it doesn't necessarily always mean that you can overcome anything else that is right adjacent to that, right? That is on a similar level than that. And like we've seen, there's a lot of people where the matchups are just not as good, right? Take 𝐸𝐷, for example, or Kanne with down there, right, with the magic, with the lack of water, or take how was she called? Not 𝐸𝐬. Actually bugged me, so I had to look it up. 𝐸𝐷. Yes, 𝐸𝐷. They were poorly matched with what they were up against. Doesn't mean they can't be masters in their field. Doesn't mean they can't do the impossible in their specific field. But because of the test that was set up, they weren't able to make first class mage, right? What do you do now? But yeah, very interesting to talk about this. Also very interesting to talk about Frieren and her kind of talking to Fan and being like, I underestimate you. I have seen like the comment chain between Vincent and Airwave, and I do have to agree with Airwave here. Vincent said something along the lines of, he thinks that Frieren just said that she's underestimating Fan in order to make Fan believe that she can actually do it. And it was very interesting that we are at the point where we as the audience believe that Fan can actually do it. But in the end, Fan just was good enough to serve as a challenge for the clone Frieren, so that the actual Frieren could finish her off. Which makes sense because you're facing yourself in a way, and if you're up against yourself, you can't really win. So you need another component coming in, a component that doesn't die easily, a component that challenges your opponent to a degree that makes it possible for you to actually move in. But we also had this element of like exposing something of yourself in order to open up the enemy's defenses as well, which we did here, right? A huge amount of trust going in here between Frieren and Fan. But that's besides the point. What we were going on about was this talk between Fan and Frieren being like, I underestimate you. I can very much believe what 𝐿 is saying, where he's like, yeah, makes sense, right? Because in Frieren's eyes, even if she knows that Fan is capable of a lot, right? And that she might be more capable than anybody else, than any other human, and that she might have the potential to eventually beat Frieren, right? I think that that's what she truly believes. There's still this little part of her that sees her as this little girl that grew up with her, right? That little girl that's just going up to here and starting to learn magic and trying to do right by 𝐿𝐻𝐷, right? And yeah, maybe that little part is still kind of low-key underestimating her in moments where you can't think things through thoroughly, right? Because obviously if you have time to think about something like this, Frieren, as a very logical character, won't, right? She won't fail to notice that. But at the same time, we are now at the point that we had combat encounters where any second counts and you don't have time to think everything through thoroughly. And in such moments, the instinct of seeing Fan as this little girl might still kick through, and this might have been what she meant. Yeah. But yeah, first episode here, Fan being a little bit peeved still, in my opinion, maybe not quite understanding how Frieren understanding it, right? But her emotions getting the better of her here, because yeah, we get attached to these things that we pick up in life, especially if they're connected to people that were very near and dear to our heart, if they're connected to things that defined us as human beings. And this staff definitely defined Fan, right? Think about Fan without the staff. We've seen her a lot of times without it, but in a combat encounter, we can't imagine it at this point. Speaking of imagination, we had this talk about like imagination not being the same as visualizing something being possible, and I do agree there, right? We do have the difference between what can I imagine could be, in the sense of I don't have to think about any laws of physics or laws of magic or laws of nature. I don't have to think about anything being plausible in the world, but rather about what could be possible in an alternate reality or whatever. This is all the things that we can, all the visual and thematic and otherwise other modality elements that we can stick together. That's our imagination, right? What we think could be possible if the rules of our world wouldn't apply. And then there's obviously our ability to visualize in that way, right? I cannot visualize winning against somebody, which, yeah, I mean, I can imagine winning against somebody, but if I can't visualize it, if I can't actually see a way to win against somebody, it's not gonna work out. And I think that is the difference, right? That we can imagine fantastical things, but if we think about their application in actual reality, then it's gonna be really hard to do so, right? I think a good way to explain this is technology, right? In a way, somebody who is born today can possibly imagine things related to AI and neural implants and all of these things, right? Somebody 200 years ago probably could imagine it, couldn't visualize it though, right? Their idea of what this could look like would be a lot less detailed, a lot more vague. And as long as it is this vague, at least this is what the series is telling us, as long as as what we imagine is possible, right, is this vague, we can't actually go through the steps or imagine the exact way it works. As long as that's the case, it is gonna be very hard to actually do it. It's gonna be nigh impossible to do it. So magic relies in this world not only, because I think that's also important, but not only on the ability to play on your imagination, but also on the ability to see and make out ways in which this could be plausible in reality. Which makes what 𝐸𝐽 is doing actually a very talented thing to make that jump, right? To ignore certain amounts of logic that are happening and actually see through these defenses, being like, y'all think too hard about this. I can visualize how it's happening. And somehow she has found something that in the laws of physics of this world, in the laws of magic of this world, is actually a thing that is valid, right? It's not something she just made up in her mind and was like, this is how it works, but she actually found a valid way to do it. It's very interesting because the way she describes it is very much more feeling based, right? She's using her intuition, and I guess that is what some people actually can do, right? Some people have to go step by step through a process to actually get to know how to do something, and even then maybe they can't even do it because they fail to put what they know, right, the base knowledge they have, into action, because there is motor requirements that are at the base of this, that you also need to be able to fulfill. But other people, they watch something a couple of times or try something out a couple of times, and then it clicks and they figure it out. And if you ask them how exactly they did it step by step, maybe they can't even explain it to you, but it works for them, right? And that is, in some cases, intuition, talent, right? Stuff like that. The brain makes a connection somewhere, but I am not aware of how it exactly works. Now, obviously, I often have a way to simplify it in my mind, right? To build myself that bridge of being like, this is how it works. But if you describe it, how it works to you in your mind, how it works to your conscious mind, to somebody else, maybe they'll listen to that and they're like, wait, I'm listening to what you're saying, but if I do exactly what you tell me to do, it doesn't work for me. Yet again, a very interesting mystery of the human mind. But obviously it makes sense, right, from a logic standpoint. But we were at the staff and emotional connections. It's very, very endearing here that Lavina opens herself up to Kanna like this in this case. And she actually wants to be consoled, right? This is a moment of weakness, but also a moment of trust, right? Her best friend, right? She wants to be feeling better. She feels down about it, and she doesn't even have the energy to fight back. She just wants to heal from her wounds. Frieren's trying to do I mean, we have the same here with Richter, right? He's trying to heal his wounds the way he does. He's grumpy middle-aged man, brushing people off, being all snarky and sarcastic, and Eisen. I'm always saying Eisen. Denken kind of relates to that. He kind of relates to that, and even though Richter complains all the way through, even Richter is like, dude, you didn't even buy anything. He actually feels better afterwards. And for a short second, he's actually stating that when they were like, right, when he was talking to Frieren and they have their back and forth, and he's like, I was just starting to feel better and now you come in with this bullshit. But he takes on that job anyway, despite it being junk basically at this point. And he corrects himself. He's like, this is a really beautiful staff that was very well maintained. And obviously, as somebody who, I mean, he opened this shop, right? He's the best, supposedly the best repairman around for magic artifacts and whatever. He enjoys his work. And him concentrating on his work, doing what he can do. Despite what failures he's been past, and anybody could have failed in a moment such as this. He actually, it helps him, right? It helps him to put off the thoughts that are going around in his head. It helps him to put his mind to work. It helps him enjoying himself a little bit in what he can do, right? And regaining that little bit of his hurt pride and his maybe nagging self-doubt that he's got going on here. And we come full circle, right? Fan and Richter meet. He's like, better take good care of the staff. And she's like, what? The swallow in. Interesting. And that's, yeah, the swallow on the end of the bed here. And we do have that thing going back to like emotions and whatever. And we talked about that in episode 26, another comment, right? Talked about that for a second there. That Frieren in the time between she parted ways with Heiter and Eisen after the funeral, and when she met up with Heiter when he was already with Fen, that she was like, not I want to learn more about humans, but I want to spend more time among humans, which, yeah, I mean, this is an important distinction to make, right? She was already aware of how humans work to a degree, and I do agree there. We talked about this, right? And then she went ahead and she was like, I've gotten to know humans even more, right? I've spent more time with humans at this point, which is kind of like a throwaway phrase that you don't even pick up when you first watch the series, because it's, or maybe it was in the manga, because I genuinely don't remember the sentence coming from Frieren. I do wonder if the anime in that regard is kind of displaying Frieren a little bit less emotionally competent than she actually is. Now, obviously, we know she had problems, we know she's awkward, but maybe the anime has been putting it on a little bit too thick, and some of the things left out might have diminished that context that we could see that Frieren, even before all of this started, had a good grip of what humans are and how they work, but maybe just wanted to be more and more in touch with all of that. And has gotten in touch with it, right, over the years in between that we had the time skips and whatnot. But yeah, she's trying her best, and she cares a lot about you, and yeah, but that's how it is, right? Fen is a teenager, she is. That's how it works, right? You don't understand me, Mom. You don't understand me, Dad. Right? And sometimes it's true, right? Sometimes it's just true, and sometimes you're overreacting a bit, or maybe you are so locked into the preconceived notions that you have based on previous experience you had with the person, and you're going into a mode again, you're like, this is typical. But maybe it's not, right? Maybe it was just a simple discussion, and Frieren was like, well, you know, you could get a new one. It might be easier. And then Fan was like, how dare you? Right? This is important to me. But we see what happens, right? Frieren immediately goes, right? When she gets pushed back, she's like, yeah, this is confirmation, as I thought you care so much about this staff. Right? Would you rather have Frieren being like, here, I repaired your staff, and then you're like, oh, I could have gotten a new one? Now, obviously, Frieren knows Fan a lot about this, a lot at this point. So I'm pretty sure Frieren was sure that Fan was very attached to the staff. But I guess it's not wrong to get the confirmation. Alright, and we're back. Hello, 𝐸𝐏, how you doing? How you doing? Same face as always. Lunch too. Yeah. Talk! Actually, say it, Fan. And we proctored the test, and once again we go again with this, in my opinion, unfair way of dealing with this stuff. But hey, I guess it's the 𝐸𝐧𝐬𝐬 club, right? This is like serious pupils, and whoever is like first class mage is supposed to be like the serving the kingdom or serving 𝐸𝐬𝐬 in whatever goal she's brewing up. And I'm sure she's brewing something up, right? That she has some grand plan, because she came in here, swooped in here, was like, psych, I'm gonna do it anyway, right? After she was like, I'm not gonna fulfill Flum's wish, and this is not what I want, and being all baka, and maybe for emotional reasons, or maybe for reasons of her own, right? Because she has certain goals and ambitions that she saw possible now, wants to fulfill, right? We've talked about visualization, right? Being able to actually visualize doing something, and Flum talked about this in the sense of like the age of peace and whatever, and it not being possible for 𝐸𝐬𝐬 because she can't imagine a peaceful age, right? She can't imagine general total peace, as opposed to what we see with Himmel and Frieren. But maybe something changed in her cognition at this point, where she was like, okay, things that I previously thought impossible, they're in reach now, because times change, right? And now she has new ambitions, new interests that she wants fulfilled, and this is her big boy club, right? This is her followers, her acolytes, basically, who are basically here to be like, all right, 𝐸𝐬𝐬, what am I supposed to do here? Where am I supposed to go, right? What impossible challenge am I supposed to take on? And if that's the case, then yes, then the first class mage title in a way, it's just a formality for Fan, right? It's just a formality to get to the north, because for her it's not, she doesn't want to follow 𝐸𝐬𝐬, and she made that clear last episode. I do wonder if she gets offered a spell and if she actually accepts it. 𝐸𝐬𝐬 being very passive, which I like, again. Still don't love the attitude that 𝐸𝐬𝐬 is perpetuating here, but we talked about this ad addendum. Lannon, very interesting character. I do hope we see him again. He seems relatively humble when he refers to Frieren and whatnot. He makes the misjudgment because he doesn't see that 𝐸𝐬𝐬 is actually suppressing her mana. Interestingly enough, she is showing probably just enough mana to show people that she's the strongest ever, right? Like the strongest person in general, but not more than that, right? So kind of a measured difference between what Frieren is doing with total suppression and Flum was doing, and actually what demons are doing, right? They just let it hang. So she's bit of both, kind of, right? Kind of devious if you think about it. But she's playing king in her little castle here. And we see a shot of young Lennon. Once again, remind of like 𝐸𝐬𝐏 probably knowing him at that point. Being reminded of the mortality of people. Was very handsome. I mean, he's still very, very cool looking, but... And she's slighting him for his demeanor. Wonder if that's just games people play, as we've mentioned before, if that's just their way to have banter, right? Or her way to have banter with him. If he understands it that way as well, because that is something as well, because obviously one person can be under the impression that they're having banter with somebody while the other person is under the impression they're being criticized or talked down upon. And I do wonder how he feels about that, because he doesn't look too happy. 𝐸𝐬𝐏 𝐋𝐢𝐬𝐬, or Archmage, if you wanna call it that. Frieren is prepping Fan for her interview. Bum, you fail. May I ask why? You're frightened, you can't imagine yourself as first class, go again, which, okay, fair enough. I can see that with Kana. She's very inexperienced, very green, very kind of hesitant still, right? So it might behoove her to have some character development, to have some development before that, right? Process some things. And become first class with Lavina, right? Which would make sense too for how the two of them are. Laufen fails. I mean, we've not seen a lot from her. She's a little bit immature here and there. We have seen that. Doesn't mean she needs to fail. I wonder why she was supposed to, right? Why that was a thing. But yeah, I can see that. Frieren getting failed. I mean, we knew that. Look at these shots, like the way she looks throughout the entire episode. Like I said, there's a lot of elements in there that we can see, right? Jealousy, possibly, because Frieren and Vlam were so close. A general disregard for how Frieren and Vlam saw the world, right? What priorities they have and how they act and whatnot. Especially also with how Frieren acts as a mage, right? Because even Vlam said it is kind of bringing dishonor to yourself as a mage, not to be out there, show your mana, show what you're capable of, but to remain under the radar. And Frieren only very recently started to make herself known, so it makes sense that that might not fly well with 𝐸𝐬𝐏 and how she sees things and the worldview she has. And she's like, you won't even stand your ground when I mock you. But it's typical Frieren behavior, right? And it goes in the same vein as what we just talked about. Staying under the radar, right? Frieren doesn't fight back because she's not somebody who is looking for a fight. She's somebody who is generally has internalized this idea of, I do eliminate threats if they're necessary, like if it's necessary to eliminate them, but if it's not, I'll go, like, I'll evade that. And I'll do that in a way as not to show all of the cards I have in my hand, or how clever I am, how much I know, how powerful I am, and all of that. And again, we do have this, like this difference in perception, but also in the way you attribute things. While Frieren is seeing a strength in the company of 𝐏𝐢𝐏 and 𝐈𝐦𝐩, and she is getting emotional and mental, right? It's her emotional and mental foundation in a way, right? And it's what makes her proud. She's like, well, then you just had a good team, I guess, right? It's brushing that away. And I do really love this scene, right? Serene talks between the two of them and how he's opening up. He's like, you showed me beauty, you showed me hope, you showed me how beautiful magic can be, and I wanted a mage like this on my team, which is amazing. But also it changes the dynamic of like Frieren and Himmel totally, right? Not in the scenes we've already seen, but at the very least, post all of that, we do have a whole new view on all of that. In a way, it recontextualizes a lot of the interactions, with the faint smile and right the gaze going to the flowers, which is beautiful. She's very proud of Fern, which amazing. And she's gonna brush it away, right? She's like, exceed my expectations, I don't know. But she sees it, right? She sees the fluctuations. Nobody else has seen it. It's like, become my student. She's gonna poach. But Fern's like, sorry. I ain't taking no bitches for my mess. No, I don't like Siri as much, right? I mean, I can understand her to a degree here and there, but I don't like her attitude. I don't like her worldview, so I'm not gonna hide that. Her design is cool, I guess. But she's not gonna fail her because she has too much potential. So yeah. He's gonna do it, she's gonna do it. I do wonder if she's gonna offer her a spell and if Fan's actually gonna reject like Frieren did, or if she's gonna accept what spell that could be, right? Can't wait to see episode 28. Let's get into it, right? For everybody who is new here, why are you new? Like, this is episode 28 of Frieren. Like, come on. I have an entire series here. I'm just kidding. There's two versions of this. Pip in the description down below, edited here on YouTube if you want to see that. Whatever you want to choose it. And I would appreciate it if you stayed for the discussion afterwards. But let's get into it. Alright, alrighty then. Frieren episode 20. Sorry. Frieren episode 28 starts in a 3, a 2, a 1. Okay, we end on this moment. Alright, next one. Fan passes, we knew that, right? Your knee. I don't know the exact wording. It's very interesting how in songs you can sing sukoshi, but like in normal speech you'd be saying skishi. Yeah, skushy. Wonder how many characters we will see in the next season of all of those. What's up, Denken? Love the angle on that. Ooh, hey, he kinda looks like Stark, honestly. Alright, Frieren. Burned out ash, holy shit. Alright. Lennon taught you otherwise? Alright, so she found a point of connection. That's what she's looking for. Right. What is she gonna say about 𝐸𝐸? She hasn't even said anything. Is Land gonna pass? A clever one? What the fuck? He's been Zoom calling all along? Fuck me. Not even 𝐸𝐽 saw it. Fucking hell, dude has been Zoom calling this entire season. Ooh, okay. Alright, she likes that, of course she does. Alright, Bitchute. You pass. Right, so you admit you were wrong. Lan, she's gonna follow you to your hometown. So that was actually one of his reasons. Obviously, he's not gonna tell us the other ones, but you know. It doesn't change the feeling, right? Of being thankful for it. Holy shit, Fan. Just take them both. And we're having a picnic, nice. So now he's spoiling. Oh, this is interesting. We talk about this for a short bit. That is very relatable, right? Come on, Stark, chill. Ambition. Ooh, but also, yeah, okay, she mentioned his wife. Okay. Oh, did he become an Imperial Mage because of that? No, it's so his rise to ambition came after his wife passed. Magic as a tool. Or as a reason on its own, right? Wow, okay. But the origin is in... Yeah, people won't know if you don't tell them, right? We had that before. But that was an interesting piece, right? The sparks that she started. Gremlin Frieren is back? Squishy.
第一次試験でフェルンたちを殺そうとしたんでしょ。犬とか蹴っ飛ばしてそうなやつだって。
Holy shit.
単なる脅しだよ。まあ一人殺しておいた方が世のためになりそうなやつがいたけどな。
Ah, you don't know that.
一級魔法使いになりたかったのも、望む魔法が与えられる特権のためだ。強い魔法が手に入れば、それだけ魔族をぶっ殺せるからな。
Comes down to the demons, huh? Interesting how we get to know more about these people who we're gonna part ways with soon.
俺の故郷は北の辺境でな。
Yeah, Denken and Wirbel with homes in the north.
戦況の塔の攻略、七宝剣、不死なるベーゼ。
Böse.
ガキの頃の俺はそんな冒険探が大好きだ。
Of course, right? Fables, stories.
バトモンはそんな話めったにしやがらねえ。やれ村を襲った魔物を退治しただの、やれ商人の護衛をしただの、ひどいもんだと単なる荷物運びまであった。
Something that you're more connected to.
つまんねえ話だ、そう思ったよ。なのに村のジジババは心底嬉しそうに
Yeah,
そんな話をするんだ。
because it meant a lot for them.
勇者ヒンメルが死んで魔族の残党が暴れ始めてからよくわかったよ。
Yeah, for many people this is their world, right?
ベーゼも光極竜も魔王すら俺の村には関係ねえわな。
In the grand scheme.
を守るので手一杯だ。きっと勇者ヒンメルが俺の村に来なかったら世界が平和になってもそこに俺の村はなかったんだろうな。
Yeah, the little things.
俺をここまで連れてきたのは勇者ヒンメルのくだらない冒険探だ。俺が言いたいのはそれだけだ。
Funny how we had that story with Denken and Frieren and now with Himmel and Wirbel.
結局あいつらと一緒に帰ることになっちまった。フリーレン、出会いは大切にしろよ。根性の別れってのは何も死別だけじゃない。いや、百も承知か。
Yes, she does. But I guess it's nice to hear somebody else acknowledge that.
ヒンメル、こんな小さな人助けに何の意味がある？
小さな人助けだ。世界は変わらない。
But
でも僕は目の前で困っている人を見捨てるつもり。
exactly, right? Why did she hesitate? Because it wasn't necessary? Because other people were around?
世界はちゃんと変わっている。
Has it?
今夜特権の授与があるのですが、同伴者がいてもいいそうです。
Frieren doesn't want to. I understand.
申し訳ありません。ゼーリエ様から
Of course she is.
出禁です。今後1000年は大陸魔法協会の施設には立ち入らないようにと。仕方がないよ。ゼーリエの機嫌を損ねてしまったからね。
So petty.
まったく子供みたいな人だよね。
I agree, Frieren.
なくて来たわけじゃない。外で待っているね。
Alright, Grandma. I'm sorry.
俺も外で待ってるよ。
Interesting choice Stark made here to go with Frieren.
そろそろ特権の授与が終わる頃かな。この世界で50人もいない魔法使いの頂点か。フェルンも立派になったね。この時代ではきっとフェルンの方が有名な魔法使いになるんだろうね。
But that wasn't the goal back then, was it?
嬉しいね。
そうだな。
フリーレン様、
Lennon.
大陸魔法協会の人だね。
フレルンです。ゼイリエ様の弟子の一人です。ゼイリエ様がご迷惑をおかけしたようで。
構わないよ。昔からそういう人だったから。
Oh, something Frieren saw.
やっぱり見えているね。私の魔力の揺らぎが。とんでもない手だれだ。平和な時代には似つかわしくないね。
そうですね。私は戦いしか知らない時代遅れの魔法使いです。
Who only knows battle.
魔王軍との戦火の時代に生まれていれば、名だたる英雄たちと共に歴史にその名を残したであろうと。
There's a reason for everything, isn't there?
それで私に何の用なの？
ゼイリエ様の弟子の中で歴史に名を残したのはもはやおとぎ話となった大魔法使いフランメン。
And you knew her.
私が老いて死ねばあの方が生きた証がまた一つ消えることになります。私はあの方を未来で一人孤独にさせたくないのです。たとえそれが伝説の魔法使いフリーレン様を討ち取ったという悪名であろうとも。
Ooh. Interesting. He's gonna make his move. prodded by 𝐸𝐴, right? She knew this was gonna happen.
手合わせを願えますか、フリーレン様。
手合わせはしないよ。時間の無駄だ。まったく。戦いしか知らない魔法使いは不器用な連中が多いんだから。歴史に名を残す必要なんてないよ。ゼーリエはちゃんと覚えている。
True.
最後に一ついい。この花畑、魔法で作られたものだ。
Hmm.
それがどうした？先生が好きだった魔法だ。くだらない魔法だって言っていなかったっけ？
Ah, interesting.
正直フランメは失敗作だった。
In what you wanted to reach.
持ちながら私ほどの高みへはたどり着けなかった。
It wasn't her goal.
その後もたくさんの弟子を取ったよ。どれも私の足元にも及ばないままほとんどが先だった。気まぐれで取ったはずの弟子なのに、一人一人の性格も法も鮮明に思い出せる。
Alright.
フリーレン、なぜか私は弟子を取って後悔したことは一度もないんだ。たとえ歴史にその名を残せずとも、自分の弟子にすら素直に気持ちを伝えられないんだ。
She's not in tune with her feelings.
フリーレンさん、
Sad in a way, right? And Frieren does.
終わりました。じゃあ行こうか。
本当に不器用な人だ。あなたも、私も。
I like that. The way he expressed that.
兄ちゃん今日は遊べないんだ。
シュタルク、朝飯は
Oh, Shark is already known. Holy shit.
シュタルク、これ飲んでおいきよ。
部の道は深く険しい。達者でな。
あ、
とのお別れだね。
Incredible how Shark makes a name for himself wherever he goes.
でも慕われていますね。
Hmm.
そうか。
ところでフェルン、昨日はどんな魔法をもらったの？
Oh no, what did she ask for?
服が綺麗になっている。それになんかフローラルな香りがする。これはまさか。服の汚れをきれいさっぱり落とす。
Alright.
これで洗濯が楽になります。
How very practical.
神話の時代に存在したとされ。でかしたフェルン、
Dude, look how proud she is.
私の弟子だ。当然です、フリーレン様。ゼーリエ様はすごく嫌そうな顔をしていましたけどね。だろうね。いい気味だ。
Serves her the fuck right. You're 100% right.
フリーレン、本当にありがとうね。楽しかったよ。元気でね。じゃあまたね。
Parting ways. Matta ne. See you later. And that's the right way to say it, right? No goodbye. We'll see each other again.
時もそうでしたけど、随分あっさり別れますね。
クラフトの時もだ。
ヒンメルってさ、すごくあっさり人と別れるよ。
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
まあ、らしくないとは思うな。 2週間も旅路を共にした中だ。彼とは毎晩のように酒を酌み交わして、それはもう。
Alright, corrupt priest.
そうだね。でも旅を続けている以上、また会うことだってある。
Indeed.
涙の別れなんて僕たちには似合わない。
Or so is the hope, right?
だって、また会った時に恥ずかしいからね。
Would be embarrassing if we met again. It wouldn't be, but you know. I understand the sentiment. The field where they met, right? Hyda's grave. The other one was Himmel's grave, I think. 𝐈𝐦𝐩𝐿, where it all began, all of them. Flum's tree. Interesting choice here. Alright, we're going over to those. And we all go on our ways. Raft still on his way. What are you doing inside? And one last stinger, I guess.
また会った時に恥ずかしいからね。
Yeah, and she said that.
それは
No, they don't get it. They don't. And the journey continues. Of course it does. What do you got to say to that? We'll do what we always do, right? We go through it, we talk through it. It's gonna be a little bit different this time though, because there's not gonna be a next episode. If you want to know what happens after that, I already got some ideas. Stay tuned until the last minute, right? Watch the discussion and then we'll talk about it, right? See you on YouTube. Right. Normal episode talk starts now. We start on this one. And she's like, alright, you pass. Fuck you, but you pass. I like it. Like the way she said it, it's like she is so annoyed, but she's like, I can't pass this by. And it's fair, okay? I gotta give her credit for that, okay? Right? She's like, okay, you got the potential, you pass. And that's fine, right? It's okay. I do appreciate that. We talk about Denken. We talk a little bit about his history later, right? When they sit together. And I really do like that he opens up. I don't know if it makes sense that he opens up. I mean, he knows Fen, for sure, and he likes Laufen. Don't know about Stark as a stranger coming into the situation, but I guess he thought it's okay to share this. And also we as the audience kind of are interested, right? We're using this as kind of to get to know the characters a little bit better, and I'm sure we're gonna meet them down the line in various arcs. So Denken was an Imperial Mage, but he was that, if I understood that correctly, after his wife passed. So he had a wife, right? And he used magic as like, maybe he could do something about it, right? Maybe he could do something with it. And he was searching for a way to kind of save his wife. And unfortunately, 𝐸̲ř, with her magic association and the privilege and whatever, yeah, she was too late for him to actually do something about it, because at that point his wife was already dead. And then he started his ambition, right, with like imperial mage and whatnot. The reason for that we don't know, but we know it was a deviation from his original inspiration, which was Frieren, interestingly enough, and the Heroes Party, and the little things they did for all the people. And we loop back to that at the end of the episode to kind of close on this season, which is a very beautiful point to close on for the season, I think. And I do love this shot, right? From down up on the angle, looking at him as a shrewd character, you see that he is a character who is ahead of the game. He's thinking about things, right? And we do have the blur in the background, right? The focus pull on him, right? Or rather, not focus pull. I always say focus pull. Focus pull is actually just if you have one object or subject focus and then you pull it to the background or to something else. This is just a nice use of focus. And he passes because he thought about fighting her for a second. Then he was like, you know what? I immediately abandoned the idea. But she's like, I thought that I wouldn't take on old people who at some point soon, well, in a couple of decades, die. But you know what? You still got that fire in you. Maybe there's something I can get out of you. And this is like her self-centered view of how can I make use of you in my plans, right? And also maybe a little bit relating to him, because she is always driven in some way. And she does like people who are driven. 𝐸𝐏, they don't even have to talk. She's like, you pass, which, fair enough. We have, I mean, the way 𝐸𝐏 conducts herself, the way she's confrontative, the way she's to the outside at the very least. I would see that 𝐸𝐟 very much sees her capabilities, especially also her potential with how she was able to defeat 𝔸𝕓, or 𝔸𝕓's clone. I do see that, right? She would probably pass her on potential alone, but she also sees that 𝐸𝐏 is driven, right? She's very curious about other mages, and she's trying to very much empathize with them, so she learns new spells and shit like that. So she does have goals in her mind. I'm sure she has her own motivations. We don't know them yet. I hope we see more of 𝐸𝐏, and we do see more of who she might be, right? Or at least who she shares to be, as Denken did earlier on, and as 𝐸𝐵 will be in this episode a little bit later. We have Land, and it is fucking incredible. Dude is on a Zoom call for all of the semester, right? This is the kind of, right? He is the kind of student who's just sitting there. He's like, I'm gonna be on every lecture on the online stuff. If there's anything to be present for, I send somebody else. They're gonna take the notes, and I'm gonna do my thing. And at the end of the semester, I'm gonna pass the exam with flying colors. I love him. I love Land. He's amazing. He's like, this is my true self. She's like, no, what the fuck are you? You capping, man. You actually all the way in your home. She did fucking scrying or whatever. She's like, you're all the way in your home. And he's like, not even 𝐸𝐏 noticed. But of course she'd notice. She's like, you got guts, you pass. Okay, fair enough. He is rude, but that flatters her kind of, low-key. That's what she likes, right? Seeking challenge, being combative, right? Being ambitious. Disrespecting low-key a little bit, right? And we see vastly different reasons why they pass, which is very interesting, because in last episode, we had this sense of her that she was just like, y'all fail, right? Y'all get the fuck out of my club, which, fair enough, right? That might have been an attitude too, but and I thought about that after the episode. I was like, yeah, of course, some of them are gonna pass. But what's very interesting and very telling always is why they are gonna pass. We do have 𝐸𝐵, who is like, they all have their own reasons, they all have their own approaches, but most of these approaches align with what 𝐸𝐟 sees as either her relating to it because she thinks similarly, her respecting the attitude, or her thinking it can be useful for her. She can make use of it in the future. Yeah, and favorite spells, and he's like, I need a like or dislike, it's just a tool to kill people, or right, to make true what I believe, right, kill demons in this case. And she's like, you pass, right? I like that. Interesting that 𝐸𝐟 let Methode pass with the comment she had, but she is very well versed, right? She even can do like simple magic of the goddess stuff, which is very cool. She has a very good sense of mana detection. We do know that. She has a good head on her shoulders, and she has talent for various things, so I can see that she sees potential in her. And then she's like, what did you think when... I do wonder if 𝐸𝐟 has some kind of like thing where she can read thoughts or read intentions. That she can actually tell that and is like asking the right question in this regard. But what did you think when you saw me? And she's like, well, that you were small and cute. And she's like, what the fuck is going on this year? Like, what the hell? Did I walk into a circus or something? And I do like that. I do like that she's like in that position of, yeah, what's wrong with this year's test takers? Holy shit. Yeah. And she apologizes. She's like, you know what? I'm sorry. This year's this year's this year's group is insane. You're right. You did not make the test too easy. 𝐿𝐦𝐩 still following Lund. He's like, stop following me. Why do you keep following? She's gonna follow you home. Promise you, Land. And everybody is processing the results, positive or negative. 𝐸𝐻𝐢𝐏 thinking, Frieren being like, thanks, I can go to that grave, which is not the only reason he's going there, but it is probably a main reason why he's going there. Interesting, he probably could have pulled his Imperial connections to get there as well. You can't completely stop the traffic over to the Northern Lands. They would be totally lost then in that case, but Fan trying to decide between different things. It's like, what do I take? And they meet a nice little setup, and he's like, it's on the house. I don't spend my money for anything else, which fair enough. I can relate to that on some level, where I'm like, okay, you know, if I had all the money in the world, it's probably go into just making sure that everybody I know and me myself are doing fine. That's the most I would do with it. Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd get, but it's much better to just make sure everybody you know and that you care about is alright. And maybe treat other people every once in a while. And he has no children, right? He has no grandchildren, and it makes sense now that we do have maybe that connection with Laufen going on, and with Richter, he maybe sees him almost like a son, right? He's like, I used to be like you when I was younger. And yeah, interesting that he's saying stuff like, we didn't used to have sweets when I was younger, you go eat up. I do know that a lot from grandparents, right? There's a lot of grandparents who had that attitude, especially like here in Germany, where there was a lot of war, right? And the generation of my grandparents, or even like the generation after me or before me, the grandparents, they were used to the war, right? And to post-war times and things being hard, inflation, not having enough food on the table, right? And what did they do when the situation changed, the economy went up again, and things were good again? Eat, right? Buy things to eat, food, compensate, overcompensate to a degree, right? I didn't have these treats when I was young, so I'm gonna spoil you with it, right? That is kind of the attitude, and it's very relatable to the experiences I've made in life with people of that time, right? And we get told a little bit something. Back then I was in need of both wealth and influence. Those were the only ways I knew how to save. So it started with that, right? Even his like imperial stuff, where he was like, I need to make money, I need to get influence. And she began offering the privilege later on. And then it was too late, right? Yeah. And he was inspired to do magic originally, mainly because of Frieren. For me, magic was only ever a tool to resolve political disputes. Tell Frieren that she reminded me how fun magic can be. I admired her deeds in the Party of Heroes, right? Little stones. And we do see that, right, reflected later on with Himmel. Frieren for Denken, Himmel for Wirbel, in this sense. I do wonder why she stopped here. I love Gremlin Frieren when she's excited about things, but here somebody dropped something and she's thinking about it for a second. She's like, do I go over there and help her? Or the thing is, the longer you wait, the less likely you are to do it. And if there's a lot of people around, you have something that's called like the diffusion of responsibility. It's possible that nobody acts on it, but because there's so many people around that you're always like, okay, somebody else can do it. It's an interesting psychological effect. It has been studied a couple of times in the past, so But yeah, I do wonder why she hesitated, what her own internal, at least her own conscious internal reason was here. Maybe she would have gone there if she wasn't, but she hesitated to see if somebody else is doing it. And we start the conversation like this. He's like, I would have expected more, right? From somebody from the Party of Heroes. He's setting the standards. And she's passing the ball back in his court, being like, you were killing, you're trying to kill Fan's team there, right? You want to talk. And he was like, yeah, there was maybe one that would have been worth killing because could have been better for the world in general, I felt. His personal subjective feeling doesn't mean it's applicable, right? Especially with the mask 𝐸𝐽 is putting up ahead. Now, for all we know, 𝐸𝐽 could just be like secretly a bad person, right? But we don't know that, and what we've seen so far at least doesn't indicate that there's just malice to her. She has a mean streak here and there, but you know. And he's telling a little bit of his story. I do wonder why he wanted to share it, right? Maybe because he saw somebody from the Party of Heroes and he was like, yeah. I mean, we all gotten to know Frieren at this point. To a degree, right? He didn't get to know her all that well, but at least in the second test we got to know of her in general. And in between, maybe we had parts, right, talking. He talked to Stark, right? And Stark probably told him about Frieren. And we do find out more about the motivations, and he's like, 𝐏𝐤𝐏 was like a big guy. 1000 Mirror Tower, 𝐵𝐢𝐻 the Immortal, interesting. Maybe he's not still around, huh? Would be cool to see him. Oh no, isn't... No, that can't be. Because he looks a little bit like the one that Frieren defeated all the way back when Flum found her, but no. I mean, 𝐏𝐤𝐿's battle against 𝐵𝐢𝐻, so he was still alive at that point. The 7 Sages of Destruction, so 𝐵𝐻𝐻 the Immortal is not one of the 7 Sages, interesting. And the Hell Emperor Dragon. Okay, Evil Dragon, cool, love it. Love the design of that tree, by the way, really, really cool. Reminds me of like some of the old trees that are around here as well. Yeah, and he says it's the little stories that were important to the villagers, right? Because they were significant for what happened within that region, within that village, right? It ensured that people were still around and kicking and doing things, and that the village was still surviving. And I was like, I realized that all of these big deeds, they're amazing, but they are not all. But he says they're not what defines it, right? They're not what saves the village here, for example, or what's responsible. I would say they're not all that is responsible. You need that too, right? But the little things go a long way. And this is your world as a villager, right? And obviously if somebody comes in and he cares about the little people, right? He cares about just the simple things, right? Helping somebody, making somebody's life easier, or helping somebody survive the winter. Obviously that is going to be significant for that person. Way more significant than grand tales that he hears about all the things that happened all the way far away, right? Where you maybe weren't directly affected. Indirectly, right? Because there's a more peaceful time happening, there's more stuff happening. It's the same with like I mean, not exactly the same, but you can compare it to like politicians, for example, right? Local politicians sometimes being very detached from what you have on like the general national politician side, national politician, and everything that happens up there being somewhat removed from what we ourselves might be appreciating within the more narrow scheme of our region, of our specific part of our corner of the world, right? And I do like that 𝐸𝐽𝐿, 𝐴𝐻𝐿, and 𝐶∗ are sticking together. now that 𝐸𝐬𝐏 has the first class mage thing, he can actually go to the north and take 𝔸𝕬𝕠𝕦𝕥 with him, right? And they can gather more experience in one day if they so want to, if they so desire to. They could be first class mages as well, although maybe depending on what goals they have, right? Depending on their ambitions, they wouldn't even need to, right? It's like you should treasure the encounters you have, but you probably know that. Yeah, I think she knows that at this point. She does. Even if it doesn't always show, I think it does. Frieren is a person who does and doesn't tell, right? She's often just doing, not explaining to people why she's doing what she's doing. Doesn't feel the need to justify herself here, because this is all... Other people don't necessarily have anything to do with it, right? And we reiterate that point through him, alright? I do find it interesting that, like, I won't ignore those in need, and she's like, time, the world has changed. Thanks to you, right? Thanks to the impact you left, like the little ripples that are going through history. So many people who have been affected by this, right, have been influenced by it. 𝐸𝐬𝐏, denken, just the ones in this episode. Stark is like, very much feels like the new generation of what 𝐸𝐽 used to be. He has his own flaws, right? He has his own differences to 𝐸𝐽. But there's a lot of parallels going on too. And we do the privileges, and no, she doesn't want to. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm here. And he's like, for the next 1,000 years, you are henceforth banned. She's like, it's fine. It's fine. The kid doesn't know what she's doing. She's petty. I'm gonna go outside. I'm not gonna throw a fit about this. I knew this was gonna happen. It's like very much like Frieren is the grandma and 𝐸𝐴 is the kid who is like, no, screw you. It's like, I understand, kid. I understand. I mean, it's not right, but I understand. I love that dynamic. I love that dynamic because 𝐸𝐴 is actually older than Frieren. Super funny that she's so childish when it comes to Frieren. And that's because it is a sore spot for her somewhat. And it has to do with Flum, I'm pretty convinced. She's proud and excited that Fen is gonna be that well known, because it is not a time where you have to hide yourself. And in that case, it is nice to a degree, right? To receive the attention, to have the accomplishments, and to have all of your doors open. Maybe spread the good word, right? Spread the philosophies you learned, and we see that later with like when she's praising her for being like being a little simple in her approach when it comes to what magic she chose, because it didn't really matter in the end, right? And half the fun is just getting to know, right? Going through that journey of achieving that, right? Finding what you want to find. Lennon going in and being like, I'ma challenge you, I'm gonna leave my mark in history. But Frieren sees through that immediately. She's like, you just want recognition from 𝐸𝐴. But she recognizes you and she's gonna remember you. You don't need the grand world beyond that to remember you. She's gonna remember you. She remembers, maybe not all, but most of her pupils. And she shared that with her. Interesting, maybe she's banned her because of that, right? She's like 1,000 years. I don't want to see you for the next 1,000 years. Go away, because she shared her vulnerability with her to a degree here. She was like, despite all her talents, technically Flum was very interesting. How we're just looking at the sky here, very symmetrical with the greenhouse ceiling, and we're just looking up into the light. Wonder if this was like, in a way, 𝐸𝐴 looking up at the sky while saying that. We didn't see her looking up, but it could have been, right? Contemplative like. It was like, I remember every one of them. I chose them all on a whim, but I remember their favorite spells and all of that shit. Right, there's like a goo water spell with this one. I don't know if we... I don't know these two. Maybe we've seen them. And this one who was doing something... Oh, it's the swallow thing, right? Not the swallow, the 𝐸𝐷 thing. The one that Frieren uses to... I don't know if it's 𝐸𝐷 or if it's another one which is close to 𝐸𝐷, but the one Frieren uses to restrict the 𝐸𝐷. Really, really cool that this was the favorite spell of one of them. And Lennon had like animate golem or whatever, which really, really cool to see that individuality just sprinkled in. Never regretted taking on any of my students, even if they never made their mark in history. And she can't even tell her own students that because she's not that in tune with herself, right? Frieren is a lot more mature in that regard. I do wonder if we ever get that development on 𝐸𝐴. She's never gonna change in that regard. And she's just gonna brush it away if Fan asks her how that shit happened, and she's not even gonna say it. She's just like, well, I better get that cleaned up. And I like how he said that. Anatta, or I don't recall it exactly, but you know. And Stark just being a positive influence on everybody around them. And not just because he wants recognition or whatever, just because he does that stuff, right? The stuff that 𝐏𝐢𝐏 would have done too, right? Help this person, help this person. Wonder if that ever gets in his way, right? He's like wanting to help people, and maybe at some point he's gonna have a problem with that. People love you everywhere you go. And she's like, can't you tell what spell I asked for? And Frieren observes that and finds it out. You're like, this will make laundry a breeze. And Frieren's like, that's my girl. That's a real Grandma Frieren with grandchild fan moment, to be honest. And yeah, she is her master student indeed, in some ways. In some ways she's different, very different. In other ways she's not. And 𝐸𝐴 didn't seem happy about it. Oh, I do wonder why. She's like, really? Can't you ask for something more interesting? But no. She's gonna find it if she wants something very interesting. And I'm sure she's gonna stumble on a bunch of very, very curious spells just by the nature of her adventuring. And Frieren's like, there, serves you right. Let me stick that to you. There's like the conflict going on, the cross between Frieren and 𝐸𝐴 being like back and forth, and Fan is kind of the relay. The messenger in that way. Although obviously just one-sided in that case, because Fan is very, very much Frieren's student. And we thank each other and we part ways. Beautiful shot. Absolutely gorgeous shot. Amazing whoever did that one. The archway that we're sitting underneath, right? The bridge that is going across. Rule of 3, we have the sky, we have the sky, we have the bridge, we have the water. I mean, the background with the mountains are kind of uneven, but I would count that to the water, right? Because it's nature. We have 3 layers, 1, 2, 3, which is amazing. And we do have a point of asymmetry, asymmetry with the archway we're sitting on, or being positioned underneath, with the beautiful artwork of the stones having a reflection of the water surface, reflecting the light that's coming in. Amazing. And we're parting ways, and we're like, yeah, we said goodbye so shortly. The same way with Sign, the same way with Kraft. And Frieren thinks back one last time in this season about 𝐏𝐢𝐏 teaching the party. And I do love this little joke, the last joke with the corrupt priest, just sprinkled in there because it was there. Especially in the beginning of the series, put the bow on it, right, to end it with this season. I'm sure we'll meet each other again. Right, the hopeless optimist Himmel. Hope, 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 all of the hope. It would be embarrassing when we met again and we have parted ways like we would have never met each other again, right? I get that. I mean, it wouldn't be, but I get the sentiment. And I do love how we're going back to all of these places that we were right in the beginning, and then we jump back to see one last gaze and see apparently the grandpa of 𝐸𝐏 was possibly Lennon. Interesting, very interesting. She has a big legacy to follow then. A big legacy to follow. Maybe one reason why she got rejected by 𝐸𝐏? Question mark. But yeah, we don't know. Everybody's going their ways. Wonder why 𝐈𝐦𝐩 is alone here. Maybe they actually parted ways there with Lund and 𝐈𝐦𝐩. Or maybe Lund is like all the way over there, his 𝐸𝐷, right? And she's just going sign at the beach. Who is that in the background? Is that an One-san? And where is his friend, right? Did he make it to him? Ah, that's the Flum place, right? Flum's grave? Yeah, beautiful. And we end on that last repeat of what Himmel said, right? Once again. And of course we have to put in that very last sentence of Fan being confused, being like, what does that mean? But we know what it means. Frieren knows what it means. Sometimes we just say these things, right? They have little meaning for the people around us, but they do for us, and we say it to reconfirm it, right? To strengthen that feeling we already have, right? And that's where we end it. What an interesting show. I do need to sit on this. I don't want to say anything conclusive because I think I'm gonna do it like this. I do 1 or 2 videos. Probably the first video is just gonna try to process things and recap and just go back into the series. Kind of just look at everything that we've seen so far. It's gonna be hard because I don't have all the files. I'll have to get them again, I guess. But yeah, we'll go through it. We'll recap, we look at it, we talk about it, and maybe we should structure it a bit, starting either with the first video already or with at the very least a second video if I'm gonna do a second video. So if you have any suggestions in terms of like topics we could discuss, right? Be that the world, magic, certain people and figures that fit in certain categories or certain time zones, right? Our main characters, our supporting cast, stuff like that. If you have any... The demons, right? We haven't talked about the demons for a long time. Yeah, if we have any topics that you want discussed, that you would think that are very interesting, maybe some thoughts that could get some thinking going in that regard, write it down in the comments below, please. I would very much appreciate it. Maybe I'll wait a little bit and for a couple of weeks and kind of sample what comments are coming in and what people would be interested in us talking. I'm sure a decent amount of it will be stuff I've already said, because I talk a lot on these episodes and sure as hell don't remember everything I talked about. I might remember the moment I'm saying it, but you know, but can kind of just, yeah, look over the series again. The first season that we've seen, highlight some stuff, pick up and pick out some stuff that is still unresolved or that we can still talk about more. I would really love to do that. Less on a schedule, right? More on a like whenever it's ready, right? It's ready when it's ready. You can do that. I've been Terminus. This has been season 1, hopefully, of Frieren, episode 28 of Frieren. Leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more on other series. Or even just the couple of videos I might still make on Frieren. Check out the Discord, check out the Patreon, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.